Unmuted and recorded. We already said.
Appreciate it. It's short. Let's beautiful. That's better. So it's beautiful. Eagle some maneuver. Sounds good. So we're ready to roll.
Just 1 second. We are ready when you were, Commissioner Sweetie.
Okay, sounds good. Let's call the Italian Village Commission meeting to order for January 30th, 2024. Rescheduled from January 9th, 2024, here at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204 at 4 p.m. Next month's hearing will be Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, 4 p.m. also here in the same room. And I would like to swear in the staff. Anybody testifying, will you state your name for the record?
Of course, Maureen Grant.
Any promise to tell your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon and evening?
Yes, I do.
Great. Okay, so let's go down the line. Start down there with you, Brooke. Introductions.
Brooke Michael Smith.
Shannon Fergus.
Jason Sudi.
Ben Goodman.
Okay, we have quorum and do we have oh yes, the public forum. So what do I need to do with this item here?
It's just the city attorney will commission oath of office and pledge of ethical conduct will come up and administer and notarize the oath, which can be filled out to the city clerk.
Oh, so when is here?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So a little introduction.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Monroe from the City Attorney's Office. I am your City Attorney rep. We are in the process of asking all commission and board members with the city to fill out the oath of office and commission pledge of ethics. I believe staff has prepared a copy in front of you. What will happen is that I'll administer it to everybody on the board today. I apologize. It's rather long. It looks like 2 commission members aren't here, so you'll probably hear it again next month. So I apologize for that. I am a notary, so I will notarize it. It'll be filed with the city clerk's office. Staff can prepare a copy for you. So I believe we pre-filled out the top information. So if on your copy, if the first blank has your name and the second blank should have Italian Village Commission written in there. If everybody wants to repeat after me and raise their right hand, I can administer it to everybody. Obviously, feel free to read along. It's, like I said, it's rather long. We'll probably make mistakes. That's completely fine. If you repeat after me, I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm
I Jason Sudi, solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
and will obey the laws thereof,
and will obey the laws thereof,
and will in all respects uphold and enforce
and will in all respects uphold and enforce
the provisions of the Charter and Code of the City of Columbus,
the provisions of the Charter and Code of the City of Columbus,
and will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
and will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
abide by all governing bylaws and rules and regulations
abide by all governing bylaws and rules and regulations
in the discharge of my duties as a member of the Italian Village Commission.
in the discharge of my duties as a member of the Italian Village Commission.
In addition, I acknowledge and pledge to adhere
In addition, I acknowledge and pledge to adhere
to the highest standards of ethical conduct as outlined
to the highest standards of conduct as outlined
in the attached document titled City Boards and Commissions Pledge of Ethical Conduct,
in the attached document titled City Boards and Commissions Pledge of Ethical Conduct,
which details the city's ethics laws and policy.
which details the city's ethics laws and policies.
I understand that it is my responsibility to act with integrity, transparency, and accountability
To act with integrity, transparency, and accountability
in all my actions and decisions guided by the principles set forth in said document.
in
All my actions and decisions guided by the principles set forth in said document.
Awesome. If everyone could sign it and just pass it to your left and the staff, I'll notarize it in the hallway. Commissioner Trott, I apologize. I will be back next month to administer it to you and the last commissioner. So
You want us to be printing in our name?
yeah, to sign, then print your name and then member Italian Village, obviously stop where it says sworn.
Might be a technical.
It's okay, I can figure it.
The little safety button.
And as always, if you have any questions from the city's attorney's office, feel free to reach out either through me directly, my email, I can provide it to you, or if you let staff know, they know where to find me too. So thank you very much.
Thanks, really appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay, any other public forums today, staff?
Sorry, Commissioner Sudi, you might repeat.
Oh, do we have any public forum for,
No, that would be all.
Let me give all these for you. Here we go. All right, with that behind us, we'll go to the approval of staff approvals, which begin on page,
Should be on page 6,
page 6.
and there is one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, begins and ends on page 6. Okay, can I have a motion for approval of staff approvals?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And does anybody abstain on 973, 977, 981 and Summit Street? Oh. Okay, there you go. Passes, no abstentions. Approval of meeting minutes from the last meeting, which was December 12th, 2023. Do I have a motion on that one?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I don't think I was here for this. Is that right?
That's right.
That's correct. You're here, right? Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll abstain. Okay, motion carries. What's that one? Let's see. All right, staff, it looks like we have one withdrawn from the applications list.
So we'll just move to application 2.
Okay, great. IV 2401003, 15 East Second Avenue. We have 15 East Second Avenue here yet? Okay, great. Come on up. Have a seat. Once you get settled, we'll get you sworn in. And go ahead and raise your right hand, state your name for the record.
Paul Lido, Sign Effects Limited.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony, to the best of your ability this afternoon.
I will.
Okay, great. So we're gonna have staff explain first, and then we'll get over to you.
All right, thank you. Proposed work description, install a 2-foot 11-inch by 3-foot 3-inch by 9-inch double-sided projecting neon sign. Sign to be installed on a 2-inch by 2-inch by 1/4-inch tube sign bar with 10-inch by 10-inch plate. Sign to have 9.5 clearance from grade, and sign to be aluminum cabinet with neon illumination. Property had previously received an approval to reconstruct the front wall of the building to match existing in 2021. IV 2107007. Reconstruction included new lighting placement, new stucco, steel windows and steel door, and proposed location for new signage. Current signage or proposed signage is within the area of approved proposed signage location from 2021. Staff recommendation is to approve application IV 2401003 as submitted, any clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate with the following condition: to remove the existing gooseneck light fixture or relocate current gooseneck light fixture to be located right above the entry door. Basis of staff rec is short north design guidelines, signage pages 3.37 through 3.41. And 311613, standards for site improvements.
Over to you, sir. What would you like to add?
Thank you, staff. That was a very accurate description of what we are proposing to do. The sign actually already exists at their current location, which is about half a mile away from there. And this was approved by this commission back in 2019 at that location. So if any of you guys were fortunate enough to be on that committee, you've already seen the sign. And the owner is just actually moving locations and would like us to actually move that same exact sign from that location to this location. So fairly straightforward from my point of view as far as what we're doing. We're not going to be altering the sign in any condition whatsoever other than the building it's attached to.
Are you able to speak for the applicant with regard to the gooseneck, relocating that gooseneck fixture as staff record?
We have not talked to the owner about that, but I could certainly, if that's an approval of the approval, then, I'm sorry, if that's a condition of the approval, that's not a problem for us to mention to
Okay,
convey it.
All right, let's go down the line. Ben, what do you got?
I think it's completely appropriate. I think, if the city, including the height, which, you know, you might get some, pressure from the city to put it at 10 feet, but I think it's architecturally appropriate to have it the height you proposed here tonight. And this, I support staff's recommendations, so as long as you can comply with that, that's got my, support.
Shannon? you have-
Support staff's recommendation.
Sounds good, Carla.
I support it as well.
Anything from you on this one?
I support as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have no problem with it. I would say I support it as well. Also, I think just it's fortuitous that we have a more noticeable sign here now, because this, I think this location has struggled a little bit with a little less.
Yeah, I know it
visible
has
sign from
awning,
High Street.
had awnings on it in the past, and with the signage always being on the face of the awning, that's always tough in a narrower setting.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be real additive, kind of make it look like a cool activated street space from High Street. So I think it's great. Okay, well, can I have a motion with that condition of moving the gooseneck as proposed by staff?
So moved.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second,
All right, all in favor?
with approval of the sign also.
Yes, for approval to sign with the condition. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, congrats. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, next one is 162 East Fourth, IV 23-11-017. Great, will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Josh Matzinger?
And do you promise to tell your truth, the truth, to the best of your ability in your testimony this evening?
I do.
Okay, great. Staff, what do you have for us on this?
For 162 East Fourth Avenue, proposed work description, this is a continuing application, just to clarify. Remove existing wood siding and install new hardy board lap siding with 5-inch exposure to match. New hardy board siding to be smooth. Staff analysis, the following is taken from the approved November 11th, 2023 Time Village Commission meeting minutes. Commissioner comments, all commissioners were in agreement that the siding did appear that it can be restored and that there are some bad boards, but also good boards. Commissioner Goodman would consider a solution to install hardy board to I'm so sorry, to laminate over the whole house with hardy board siding or for new siding on the rear of home and retain original material on the front of home. Commissioners stated that the trim on the home would have to be adjusted to reflect the appropriate trim detailing and sizing. Commissioner Trott asked if the quotes provided were only for full replacement or did they provide quotes for repair, replace. Commission requested the owner provide additional assessments that were given by the siding contractors that were out to provide quotes for the work. Commissioners asked if projecting front entrance portion have replacement boards or originals since they appear to be in good condition. I'm so sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied today. So.
Yeah, me too. I don't know, something that, it's the rain.
It's the rain. Commissioner Michael Smith stated maybe that if there was an elevation that was in worse shape, that the applicant could maybe pull some good boards to replace other elevations and to maybe install new. Applicant has since supplied the additional assessments provided by the contractors that have viewed the property. Staff recommends 2 options for this. We recommend that applicant retain the original siding and repair replace where needed, as well as replacement of the current replacement trim to match the sizing within the guidelines of the city code. Or staff recommends approval of application IV 23-11-017 as submitted with any all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate with the following conditions. For applicant to retain the original siding and to install the synthetic siding plus membrane over the original. Synthetic siding to be installed in the least damaging way possible to have the option of being removed for future restoration. Additionally, for the synthetic siding to match the current sizing, profile, and configuration on the property, and to install wood trim, windows, doors, corner boards, frieze, and fascia per the recommended sizing within the guidelines in city code. Basis of staff rec is CC 311611, standard for alteration.
Just one real quick question before we head over to the applicant. In reviewing those submitted opinions, what was your opinion of the submitted opinions?
I will say some of the areas that were referred to in the assessment by I would agree. I think some of those more deteriorated areas were the nineties replacements that we've seen or saw previously at the November hearing and have record of that being replaced. I believe those areas were the more damaged boards out of the entirety of the building were those nineties replacement boards.
Okay, and, okay, we'll get back to it. I just wanted to see what you had to say about that, and we figure out where I was all curious. So, all right, sir, what do you have for us today?
So the homeowner's request, I'm here to propose party. Our firm does restorations. We've done a couple of projects, actual restoration projects. But at the homeowner's request, we're opposing party. So going over the existing siding with OSB, putting a weather barrier for the synthetic siding guidelines, and then installing James Hardy siding.
So, this is a question for both staff and for the applicant. We feel that we can kind of replicate the profiles of the trim and all the other issues that retain the feel and look of the historic building with that approach. And that's, you feel that's more appropriate than replacing it with hardy siding. Is that accurate? Is that?
Do you mean, sorry, Commissioner Stephen. Do you mean to cover up the original with the hardy board or
Yeah,
to replace?
Either one, yeah. I guess I'm just asking, visually and from a long-term success rate, is this the best way to go?
From an office standpoint, we believe it would be, just because it's going to be retaining the original siding that is still in good condition. All the trim has been replaced. It's all been from the nineties for that siding replacement back then. But it would protect the siding and then possibly future restoration if, future homeowners would like to perform that work. The siding would still be underneath for that work to happen. As long as it's sealed properly, it should be fine.
And then for the applicant, can you remind us which of the sides are new, replaced, already previously replaced siding, which are original siding?
So it appears that a lot of the rear is in good shape. It's hard to, so essentially any of the elevations where the siding is more rounded as opposed to concave. So if it looks more convex. So if it's more rounded, typically that's going to be original.
Okay.
If it has a really clean machine groove, that's probably 90s. Is really common with like Fifth Ave lumber and joints.
Point to.
Oh, yeah,
one of
sure.
those.
Yeah. So like the rear, if you see the far rear elevation, so those rear elevations, those actually appear original. A lot of the stuff where it's delaminated, that appears to be like there was some spot replacement. So like the upper rear and the lower rear, that appears to be original. The left elevation rear, some of that appears to be replaced. Sorry, on this photo. Let's see here.
Yeah, and all I'm getting at is, I'm fine with this idea that we wrap the whole thing and just, if there's like entire giant portions of this thing that are 90s, I'm just wondering, like if the entire front house is 90s siding, it's all falling apart, is that of more value to just completely start over with all that and then preserve the rear portion if that's the actual siding? That's the reason.
I'm more or less with you. I was going to say, and try to get some clarification. Is it possible that with Michael Smith's Commissioner Michael Smith's comment last month that we preserve the back portion of the building as is and allow the applicant to do
there you go.
the house? So whether that's just the form or the form plus, or is it two forms? Is it the gable only, or is it the gable plus the hip? Or is it the gable, the small gable at the back plus just the rear elevation? Things like that. So I would like to have that conversation here. I think that it would behoove us to try to show an effort to leave some of the original exposed and have it properly painted and so forth. But, and part of the reason I say this, because I just worry that, with every surface we put new on, there's gonna be a trim, window trim and a corner trim issue that, amplifies. So I just think the more we can do to preserve existing surfaces, the better.
I just real quick, and I know I'm always one doing this, but we have had homes come in like way worse looking that we forced to just, sand off and repaint. So I'm uncomfortable with allowing this to be wrapped. Because I mean, like, every year we're dealing with this and we haven't allowed it to be wrapped unless they can actually prove there's something rotting. And I'm looking at this and I see paint peeling, but that doesn't equate to rotting wood. So that's what makes me uncomfortable. It's just, we're putting ourselves in a position of past applicants coming back at the city for being treated unfairly. So I would need to see something beyond what I'm looking at in any of these pictures. I like, even what some of these some of these are saying, oh, look, it's a sign of rot. I'm like, that's caulk that's pulling off, that's paint that's pulling off. It is not rotted wood. So I would just caution us that, yeah, it'd be easy to say, sure, wrap it, but.
Would you be opposed to having a site visit? We used to do those.
I mean, maybe if staff wants to go.
And the only reason I say that is because, and again, I'm a contractor, so from my standpoint, I would be more than happy to do repair and then come back and do replacement. The only concern is if there is actual delamination and we paint, the paint's just going to pull away. The back of the wood will be, or the wood will be on the back of the paint. So I agree, it's definitely difficult to delineate from the photos. So I mean, would we be able to do a continuance and base that on doing a walkthrough?
Yeah, we sure can do a continuous. Let's keep going through everybody's comments and then we'll kind of come back.
Sure.
And think about some, approaches after this. The one thing I did want to focus on as we go through is, this big side that faces Hamlet.
Hmm.
In all the time I've been around, it's always looked kind of lousy.
Yeah,
even when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
been repainted.
It's old growth wood,
Right, so that
hangs out. Yeah,
that's what I'm worried about, is us kind of going through a process and then that side continues to look
Which side?
unsuccessfully repaired, the kind of the other side of the house that goes toward Hamlet.
Is it on, page 13?
I think so, yeah. Sorry, I'm on. Right behind.
There's a
definitely.
elevation. on
Yep.
page
Yeah,
13.
so, Brooke, why don't you jump in and hear your thoughts?
Well, I'm looking at this. And, and do I understand correctly from what you said that the areas that seem to have more problems, more damage and delamination are not the original boards, they're later replacement board?
For the most part,
Then,
yeah. So this elevation, as I was mentioning, there's still some areas where, you get boards that'll split, you get, if they start to cup over time. What I've run into in the past, because I've done actual restoration projects where we come out, we sand the wood, we fill it, we pull stuff from the back of the house, put it on the front of the house, is that if there is, we'll use the proper coating, but if there is actual moisture in the board, albeit if it's old growth wood, it'll still delaminate, right? Doesn't matter what coating you put over top of it. So that's my only concern. But from a restoration standpoint, we have a full service wood shop. I would much rather, charge triple and restore it, right? As the contractor, in all honesty. I just want to make sure I'm operating on the homeowner's,
Right.
best interest in conjunction with what's proper for restoration.
right. I guess in my mind, I don't know why we would try so hard to keep replacement wood in the first place if it looks as bad as it does here.
Yeah, fast growth wood is gonna,
Right. with the original siding looking as if it's in much better shape. I would retain the original. I think that I could be on board with that. And so, you know, I mean, I wouldn't try to keep this.
Carla, what do you think?
I agree with Brooke. I think, Commissioner Michael Smith, that is. I'm having a little bit of a hard time, honestly. I appreciate all these photos more than
Sure.
you probably have ever had before. But I don't see a key and I'm not really sure what's what sometimes. But if, like, when I look at the front of the house, front elevation, I'm seeing replaced boards from the 90s, then they're the ones that are looking the worst in the house.
But yeah, so there, and I apologize, I did provide a key, I'm not sure if that made its way, made its way.
In the document.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Oh, it's like in the letter, isn't it?
yeah. It's easier than trying to go over top of the photo so you can get a
So
better
it
idea.
makes sense to me that that would definitely be replaced. It's not, you know, original siding. I don't even know if it's a hardy board or what it is exactly. That's a part of it, but it looks bad.
Yeah, it should all be, I mean, for all intents and purposes, anything in the 90s would have been pine. The old growth wood could be cypress.
But it's
Typically it's cedar.
it's also the profile that's the issue. And I
Yeah.
that is something that I don't feel like, even though you're saying round, I understand that. And I look at some pictures and I say, yes, that's more rounded profile than another one. But that's what I don't like about kind of erasing and replacing these wood siding, is it never looks the same. It never looks as good as the original siding. And so I agree with Shannon that, you know, every effort should be made to try to retain that. I understand staff's position of saying, let you cover it, hopes that as someday a homeowner will want it back. But I would really like to see the original siding repaired and then, you know, whatever the next steps are to make the 90s or whatever come off and be replaced with that. I know you can, you know, create new wood of the same profile and shape, but whatever
Oh, yeah.
that next step is that you guys propose. And I'm just curious why the wood is rotting, and not that I expect an
Sure.
answer, but I just wonder if it's been looked at why the wood is rotting in some areas. You guys have gone in and looked at flashing.
Yeah, so
And all those kinds of problems to see why this is happening. So
I mean, really, it could be anything. Old growth wood typically stands up very well to weathering, even if there is no coating on it. So some of it could be internal moisture issues. Some of it could be where the new trim is installed, the fastener penetrates, electrogalvanized fastener. Over time, you get water into the board. That's where that's going to happen. Some of it actually can be, if it hasn't been painted in a while, the boards start to cup a little bit. So when they start to cup, that's where you get a little cracking and you could get some water penetrating. So there's really multiple factors that can lead to the board degrading. I mean, it still is wood, albeit it is a harder wood than most of what we have now. But yeah, it really is just exposure, long-term exposure to moisture.
It's 90s wood,
That's not.
that's original wood.
There's a couple areas, just to clarify, on the front.
Are there?
In between the first floor windows, and I think that's all that we have record of from a past COA.
So really where you're seeing the numbers, I think some of it has to do with where those trim boards were installed. So it's created issues with the original siding.
And since we staff did a perform a site visit before.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, I did perform a site visit before, which of course we can again as well. But we did notice that there was some cupping of boards for the 90s replacement,
Mhm.
where the lap joint was separating from the bottom part of the site.
Yeah.
So that again, some moisture issues
Yep.
too.
That's common,
Yeah.
especially at butt joints. That's where you typically see all the replaced siding fail quickly.
You have something about
Yeah, if I may, I mean, one of the things that staff, I think, is saying is that might be different from what we've looked at in the past, is that it's by fully enveloping the existing wood, it's still there. So it could be restored to its former glory at some point by somebody who has the ability to do it by way of resources and time and so forth. But I do say that with a fair amount of caution, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't go out, somebody shouldn't go out there and look at it again. But my main concern is that if we put a new envelope on it, that it just amplifies all these trim details. And so I just want to make sure that if that's going to be the path, that we get a submission of cross sections of how the new siding would interface with corner boards and window trim boards, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I could support what staff is asking for. I would also support some variation, hybrid, where we maintain some elevations, maybe the primary, the hamlet, maybe the face or something, with original profiles, original wood, and restore it. But suffice to say, I could probably be convinced to take staff's recommendation, provided that we got the right details and commitment to those details.
So I did actually list that in my proposal. I'm not sure if that made it its way over. So, you know, the nominal, yeah, like the only caveat would be Hardy does not currently offer a cove, so it would have to be, if you wanted to match that profile, you'd have to move to Boral in terms of a synthetic product.
You mean up near the soffit?
No, the siding. So the Hardy is a lap siding, so it's appropriate for the time period. It's not the original on the house. So if we did Hardy, it would be a clapboard siding, which that's a Cove Dutch lap style. So, but the what was posed essentially was the 5 1/4 board or the 4-inch exposure, which would be appropriate for the period, not the original for the house. In terms of the trim detail would match the appropriate trim detail for the time period. So we would actually, and we did this for a house on Summit at the behest of the homeowner based on approval. You essentially just cut down the Hardy and then you prime it so that
Did I
it
hear
performs
4-inch
properly.
board versus 6-inch board? You're saying 4-inch board is
4-inch exposure.
4-inch exposure clapboard would be appropriate, would be the period correct, yeah, for Hardy, if you were gonna go with the Hardy
less than
program.
that, like the visual effect of that.
Yeah, it's a different, Hardy would be a different profile completely
So.
to meet the
again,
metric, yeah.
You know, one of the reasons we're taking so long with this, in my opinion, is because we're kind of at this stage now where we're seeing a lot of these houses that were partially restored at one point come back now as people kind of re-restore them, for lack of a better term. We still haven't quite managed the way that we want to figure out how to deal with those. So I'm take staff's recommendation on, you know, the vast majority of things. I will say I share your concerns, Ben, about this. I just feel like I don't want the wrapping to be another 20 some years of not that successful outcome, followed by then also not successful outcome when somebody just doesn't restore it 2 decades from now. Is I just have a low confidence level. Like, I feel like now is a pretty good time economically and generally to have these houses restored.
Yep.
And so I think, you know, if we're gonna do it, I think this is a great time to do that. And in my, personally, I would even be okay, like, we can go and determine that like a vast majority of one of these sides is new siding, to just take that thing all the way down and then just use new materials, whether they be the other version you said of a synthetic and or a wood or whatever it is. And then just determine, okay, this is a wall, we only have to replace 20% of it.
Sure.
With, let's keep it, you know, so that's kind of my take. I just feel like the wrapping it is a solution that won't necessarily be successful. And I think it may get us into a position where we're doing that a lot.
You might wrap your wrap.
Yeah.
Each 1 year. So, I mean, I have to wrap I'm
Yeah.
wrapped in asbestos.
And you're
I'm gonna have to wrap that in Hardy someday. I'll never be able to get back to it.
Yes.
And to clarify with the commission, we do have the 2 options. I mean, we would recommend, of course, restoring, but we do think most of the boards are in good condition with, of course, kind of board need to be replaced. But, leaving that other option too, we think would be suitable as well. So
Yeah, and I guess like maybe there's an intermediate one that I'm thinking of is that like if we go back and we could do a site visit with sort of the thought of like the percentage of a whole side. Because I don't want to get into a situation where they have 5 or 10 or some, who knows what percent of the whole side is the original restorable. And then, we're doing some weird thing where we're basically preserving these 6 boards and then the entire rest of it are already new milled boards. At that point, let's just do that whole side, in favor of then maybe taking those 6 boards and using them on another side that only has 6 bad boards. And even if that's a different material, I don't think it has to necessarily be wood as long as the profile is appropriate to the time. So that's my take. I don't know, what does everybody else think?
That makes me feel a lot more comfortable
Yeah.
than just wrapping, because I think a wrap would just be wrapped.
Right, it's just a band-aid on the nasty thing.
In all fairness, and I know Hardy doesn't have a fantastic track record in the historic districts, and it's just now getting back to, hey, we'll try it again. If it is installed properly, so always caveats, right? Installed properly, maintained. So fiber cement products, if they're painted, if the sealant is reapplied when it's painted every decade, then it is considered a lifetime product.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the hardy itself. I think it's the notion of wrapping something that's already kind of failing underneath.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of, you just, like we said, you keep making the house a little bit bigger, which then makes the eve a little smaller, which then makes everything just gets a little weirder every time you do it, so.
Right. And
Makes
like
sense.
Commissioner Sudi said, it's like, sorry, you're the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Right? But the problem is that we're getting more and more of these, and
Oh, yeah.
we gotta figure out a
Yeah.
formula, because if we don't, you'll just turn our.
Well, everyone sees their neighbors getting it done and they're, hey, okay, cool, we can have Hardy, or we can.
Yeah, or they see a new build go up, that's hard.
Which is totally fine.
Which
We
is,
allow-
we allow that, and they're like, well, they have party, it's like,
Right.
well,
It's tricky.
I think it would be important to hear from the commissioner, which sides are most valuable to them to restore with the current profile.
I need more, I need someone to tell me, like, I need you to
No, I
write.
don't mean by
a
condition,
whole-
I just mean by in terms of
Yeah.
the way it,
Well, what you can see from the street,
Yeah.
right, so the hamlet and the front,
so you think,
those are the 2 sides most important to me.
Sure, for sure.
Most visible.
to be the original.
Not to be the original profile.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Even if you use new.
be the original profile, that's.
So there's another product you can use that isn't hardy, that will look like wood board, is that what you're saying?
Floral true exterior.
Okay,
Yeah, and there is a Hardy artisan product that's just not available in our region quite yet.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's because Hardy recognizes that there's a big market to come after that Boral true exterior is come after. Sure. Basically, it's a polyash siding versus fiber cement siding.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, we're fans of both products. I use both.
Well, 2 things. One, I think it would be great if we can maybe arrange this for staff, go back with that kind of in mind, with that guidance. 2, I think we're probably overdue for some sort of a joint, not that you have nothing else to do, but some kind of like joint commission siding discussion, have guests come in who are experts who can tell us about the new products that are out there, have staff tell us what their experiences have been with those. We're trying to educate ourselves on these as the market changes as well. So,
Makes sense. There's mineral composite siding now that's performing very well. So there's a lot of good stuff out there.
well, you've been very helpful, I think, to me. I don't know. others.
absolutely,
And, giving us a lot of great information.
sorry to the audience.
Yeah. So if you're okay with us taking this and then kind of looking at it a little bit further and, hopefully finding a good solution that works for everybody,
Sorry.
or continuing.
Continue, I just need to clarify on that. For the site visit, we can conduct another site visit, as staff, if, I guess, commissioner would like to,
That'd be great.
um,
Yeah.
we can schedule it there, just to see, piecemeal it, or 2, but we probably want them to 2.
Yeah. Are there any 1 or 2 of you that would care to go?
Okay.
Would like to go? Okay, sounds
All
good.
right, we're gonna take a motion.
Yes.
I move on 23-11-017 to continue this application so that staff and commissioners Trot and Michael Smith as subcommittee can review the site with the objective of providing to the rest of the commission a recommendation of what elevations should be preserved versus enveloped. Or
I would say not even that specific.
How they should be preserved, they should.
how they should be preserved.
We're just.
But I am a little curious about it.
We would like a report side by side.
I'd also like to include in my motion that, that we get new copies of your details. I don't see this application. So if you could help staff, get those to the commission, that would.
Absolutely.
Oh, by the way, and I guess I'm not completely clear on the variations of, wide boral versus, cementitious and so forth. So, if we get cut sheets in the
Oh, yeah.
next meeting,
Mhm.
that'd be great. That's it, Michael.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All right, all who move to continue in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Okay, thanks a lot. We do appreciate.
Thank you.
this.
Have a good night.
Before we finalize, just real quick, before we move on to the next application, due to having to reschedule for this day, we will have an additional week to be a part of the February agenda potentially as a continue.
Okay.
If we can at the time, then we have to do March, but just a clarification on that. So maybe we'll try to schedule something. We'll see about that on times, but just to let you know. John.
By the way.
Makes perfect sense.
My motion have included a date, or you're just gonna organize it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll organize based off of calendars. I can go in, but thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good
All
night.
right, moving on to 51 East Fourth Avenue, IV 23-12-008. We have 51 East Fourth, we have 51 East Fourth. Okay, well, in that case, we will skip that one for now and get back to it. Let's move on to 1100 North High, IV 24-01-004.
Hi.
Will you raise your right hand and state your name for the record?
Sure. Justin Wingerter, I'm with Key Blueprints.
Great. Do you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon?
Yes.
Okay, great. So have a seat and then staff will explain what's happening.
Do my best. Proposed work description is current temporary banner sign to be removed on the south elevation. Install new temporary sign that will be cut vinyl lettering that will adhere to the brick. Sign to be 30 inches by 72 inches and to include a heart that stays, that stated the short one. Sorry, I thought I had a typo. Heart the short one. This is in response to a code violation. The property currently has additional active code violations for the following. Cameras were installed, a patio in front of 1084, 1088 was created. Metal fencing was installed on top of the masonry wall at the south end of 1084, 1088 property, and arch metal gates were installed in front of the beer garden. Property was recently approved for the revised blade sign, IV 23-08011, as well as the new signage on 1088 North High Street, IV 23-08010, which is still pending final approval with the submittal of a section drawing for mounting points and scale measured elevation drawings of the sign. Staff recommendation is to approve application IV 24-01004 as submitted with any all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of certificate with the following condition: for the sign to be installed on a temporary basis and for applicant to identify the time frame that will be installed on the wall. Basis of staff correct is short on design guidelines, signage pages 3.37, 3.41, and 311613 standards for site. Letter C.
Okay, review.
So essentially, we just, I guess, would like to take down their existing banner that's in violation, and then at one of the previous meetings, it was, I believe, brought to either my boss or my attention that doing like a cut vinyl on the wall would suffice, because I remember that basically the current banner, the commission didn't care for the faded look of the brick in contrast with the brick on the wall. So to eliminate that, we suggested maybe doing a cut vinyl on the wall instead, just to make that more of a fluid look.
Okay, Steph, do we know if we ever get her rating approval on the first one?
Did not.
So we are just ad hoc. Okay, well, let's hear what everybody has to say. Anyone here go first?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I think it's fine, it's better than before, and I think the graphics, being on a sidewall that, is not typically exposed is part of the reason I think this is appropriate, and the other is it has a similar kind of quasi art-ish kind of quality to it, so, which I think is always supportable, so I support the application.
Jen, what do you think?
I agree with Commissioner Goodman.
Carl?
I agree, I like quasi art.
But not action.
That's the word.
I think it's appropriate.
I did have one thing to say as well, with the timeline. I know it was mentioned that it's temporary, and I know originally that's what the owner had kind of proposed for the banner on the wall that's lasted for years up there, I guess. So that vinyl, I mean, technically it's rated for up to 10 years if you wanted it to stay up there. What would it take to then go apply for a permit if that's the route the owner would prefer to take, instead of having it be up there for 1.5 years, be temporary?
I think the biggest issue is just that we've seen a lot of other vinyl graphics on buildings peel off.
Sure.
Or peel off. So I personally, I mean, I would be willing to extend that. I don't know if we're even allowed to do that, but just ad hoc extension to like 2 years. That being said, I'd want you to come back after that, because at that point I could envision like the T or the or something
Sure.
flapping down in the breeze. And while this is definitely not your fault, you heard there was plenty of other violations. There haven't been exactly rapid efforts to remedy those.
Yeah.
Read faded out, weird looking sign on wall for the last several years. So, and so my understanding, this is completely cut. It's just the red is the only thing on the wall, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so again, I don't know how that's gonna work. I haven't seen that before. I will say that I definitely seen plenty of things peel off. So for me, I think 2 years would be the maximum I'd be willing to approve for now as a temporary sign. And if in 2 years, it still looks good, then say, hey, see, it's been perfect, nothing's gone. And I think, whoever's on the commission at that point could consider an extension. That's my take.
What if we said, 2 years or more if in good condition, but to be removed if it starts to peel off, so they don't get the 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that,
Or is that already?
yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of
Okay.
the idea of having a time limit, so.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want it to be up there peeling off, is my point.
No, that's the idea. Yeah.
But if in 6 months it starts to peel off.
Theoretically, they're already supposed to peel it off under 6 months. This just gives us another tool by having a time.
Yeah, I think we should keep the time limit as is. Frankly, yeah, I think if this is successful and the mood of the commission is similar, I think it is appropriate to think about a pounced real paint kind of application, employ a proper artist to do something there, given that it's a secondary elevation
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So I don't want to do that, talk about that here today. I'm just saying that there might be some other better ways to execute it.
Sure.
But this is going to be our solution today.
Okay.
Does that work? Stick with
Yeah.
a year and a half?
And not to even really sway that, but just from my experience, we tell our customers usually on these 3 years, because when you do apply the correct over laminate on the vinyl and it's installed at the right surface temperature, so you get a day at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you're applying heat with the correct rollers and tools, it should last at least 3 to 5 years, if done correctly. So
We believe you, and we're hoping that will be done correctly,
Sure.
and then we'll come back in a year and a half.
I'm just
We'll be
letting
like,
you
It
guys-
looks great.
Yeah.
We'll be like, okay, sounds good. So
Mhm.
we hope that is true. Okay, any further discussion? Can I have a motion?
We're just moving to approve staff's recommendation.
If that's what the commission.
That's what we discussed.
Just
Yeah.
moving for approval with a 1.5 year.
Yeah, moving for approval with 1.5 year limit.
I was just gonna say if we could specify a temporary signage, then the wonderful.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Okay, thank you. for coming
Thank
out. We are And I didn't see anybody else come in, so I think we can just keep moving forward. 186 East 4th Street, which is IV 23-01005. Hello, sir. Will you raise your right hand, state your name for the record?
Carrick Cheryl.
And you promise to tell the truth and the best of your ability in your testimony this afternoon?
I certainly do.
Okay, great. So let's flip over to staff.
Proposed work description is to construct a new two-story, single-family home on the vacant portion of the existing lot with the structure to face Greenwood Avenue. Garage is to be attached into front Greenwood. Materials include hardy cement 6-inch exposure lap siding with smooth finish, hardy cement vertical siding with battens, smooth finish, roof shingles to be GAF slate line, English gray, dimensional shingle from approved shingle list, 6-inch K-style black aluminum gutters, windows to be Pella Impervia casement windows from the approved windows list, masonry Creative Minds carved rectangle color knapsack, garage door to be Clopay modern steel garage door with flush panels, 7 foot by 16 foot. And the drive is to be concrete. Site to include black aluminum channel style fence posts with stained horizontal cedar boards. Existing historic garage fronting 4th is to be maintained. And some of the trees have recently been removed from the site and a code violation was submitted for the approval. This is also for variance recommendations. For section 33.2, oh my gosh, 33.32.05A4, area district lot width requirements to reduce the lot width from 50 feet to 35 feet in area A and 34 feet in area B. 33.32.15 RF, area district requirements to reduce lot area from 5,000 square feet to 3,125 square feet in area A and 3,015 square feet in area B. 33.32.18D to increase permitted lot coverage from 50 to 70% in area A and from 50 to 56% in area B. 33.32.19 fronting to permit area B to not front on a public street, East Greenwood Avenue. 33.32.21F building lines to reduce the required minimum residential building setback from 10 feet to 3 feet existing for area A, and I'm so sorry, 33.32.25 maximum side yards required to reduce the sum of the side yards from area A from 7 feet 0.4 inches to 0 feet existing, and to reduce the sum of the side yards for area B from 6.9 feet to 6 feet. 33.32.26C, minimum side yard permitted to reduce the minimum side yard for the east and west side yards for the existing side yards on area A from 3 feet to 0 feet, and to reduce the minimum side yard for the east and west side yards on area B from 5.83 feet to 3 feet.
Can you repeat all that out? So any other comments besides all of that?
Yeah, but I do have my analysis from
Yeah.
our commissioner comments.
Okay.
I'd like to read those in the record this time, since these are new variances, so thank you, commissioners, for that. So staff analysis, applicant was previously reviewed as a conceptual application during the November hearing, following is taken from those minutes. Commissioner Sudi wanted to clarify that he was not stating for new owner to go back to the previous application from the previous owner, but did think the design presented at the time would be more preferable in this location. Majority of the commissioners agree that the buildings along Greenwood Avenue were a mix of industrial and vernacular buildings. Most commissioners agreed that with the style of home, they would be more in support of a driveway on the side of the home with garage and rear, rather than the garage on the front of the home. Commissioners agree that the current design appears to be more suburban in style than the designs in the neighborhood, that a more industrial style building has worked better in the area than a suburban style home with a garage facing the front. Commissioners have concern with a variety of roof shapes, slopes, and it complicates the more simple style of the homes in the neighborhood. Commissioner Goodman stated the current design of the garage diminishes the porch from the overall elevation. He recommended to maybe separate the garage from the home to maybe break down the massing on the east and west elevations. Recommended applicants consider looking into a different layout for the window punches than what is being proposed. The Commissioner Trott stated that the craftsman detail that is within the open area above the garage does not appear consistent with the rest of the house as well as the neighborhood. Staff recommends to continue application IV 24-01-005 to allow applicant time to bring their proposal in line with the applicable city code and guidelines. Basis of staff rec is 31-16-12, standards for new construction.
That is all.
Okay,
Thank you.
let me swear in real quickly. Will you raise your right hand?
Yep.
State your name for the record.
Joel Roby.
And do you promise to truth and testimony this afternoon, best of your ability?
I do.
Great. All right, so over to both of you.
Primarily, we'll discuss the design, and the design changes from, the previous submission. We've, approached this from a more industrial standpoint, in order to, uh, respond to most of the comments from the last meeting. So, we're using that masonry material. We've created a separate, a more distinct, porch entrance, and simplified the roof lines. I think other than that, I mean, this is fairly similar to, some of the homes that have been built, on the opposite side of North Fourth on Greenwood, with masonry fronts, with garages fronting, that, portion of Greenwood. So I think after that, we'll take your comments.
All right, who would like to begin today?
I'll start. Well, I think that you've heard some pushback or some opposition about having a garage facing Greenwood on the west side of Fourth Street. I will say that I might be able to get behind it if a couple things happen. But before I get into those, I'm going to say that I, first of all, appreciate the simpler roof lines, and the punches I think are appropriate, the mix of materials is appropriate. And now circling back around to the garage itself, fronting, I think it's just that it starts to feel too massive compared to the very narrow homes that it's adjacent to. And I'm a big advocate for rhythm, even though you could have different kinds of materials going on. We're looking for similar kinds of rhythm of property and home to home kind of situation. So I could almost imagine seeing this work, even in its current sort of party, if it were narrowed by, say, 5 or 6 feet. And the zero side yard setbacks have to yield to making the proportion of this this application feel like it belongs to the elevation of the street. The other thing that I think is important is that that garage the front yard setback be greater so that it doesn't overwhelm the adjacent home. So if these things can be done, then I'm in the, I feel like I'm in the ballpark for support. But I realize these are probably no small things for you guys, so I'll leave it there and see what else is going to be said by the other commissioners.
I think that the proportions are still, I agree. I think something about the garage still looks pretty suburban to me, because I think you're, especially height wise, slapping a suburban height garage door, modern height garage door, and then like just, encasing it in stone and calling it industrial, when in reality, I think it would be, the height would be taller. I also feel that it really overpowers the existing home. And that could be switched by maybe changing, what side the entrance to the home is on, and giving some relief to the existing home. But I'm not opposed to a garage in the front. I just don't think that this is successful yet. I'm not an architect. I don't know how else to describe. So hold on. Architects to discuss further.
So. Was I? No, I'm just kidding. I have a problem with the garage on 4th Street, first of all. And also, I kind of feel like you guys made an effort to create something more industrial, except it doesn't get to that point of being more industrial. It's this combination of this gable piece on the top with something that maybe would be more industrial if it was continued throughout the whole elevation. But it feels to me that instead of creating, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this in a little bit of a harsh way, instead of creating something that fits the neighborhood and has that kind of character and proportions, the piece that is the industrial like piece on the bottom just feels really heavy and wide, like the other two people have said. So I think that's really hurting you rather than helping you. I wonder, appreciate you making that attempt, but I think that if you had gone more with the vocabulary of the neighborhood, maybe this becomes 2 garages or something, and maybe that's going to feel a little bit better, something like that, but definitely making it not as wide as it is. It feels really beefy and heavy, adjacent to houses that aren't beefy and heavy. So I have issues with it for those reasons. And I think that trying to make this porch, it's this kind of wraparound porch is also just adding footness in that area to the house instead of giving it a similar kind of width and rhythm that's the other houses in there.
I'm haunting over here. With everything, I do appreciate changes that were made because I think that you did hear and respond to the comments that were made before, and I think it's on a much better path. But I do agree with all the comments that were made. And at first, I couldn't quite think like, so what is it that doesn't feel right? And it is the scale. I think it's the scale of garage. And it's almost like the upper story is sitting on this big massive block. And so I think that the reduction in the width to keep it at least somewhat empathetic to the existing houses would be helpful. And the wraparound upper porch seems to just be adding to the massive base of it. But I do think that it's better than it was. But it's not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I appreciate that you made changes, but I don't appreciate the changes. It's just, there's one house on the other side of Greenlaw that is a pure stinker. That's it. It's a dog. It's a weird thing where you try to make, it tried to be, yeah, you, whoever did it, tried to make it, can't remember how the hell they approved
I
it.
know, we were looking at it, I was like.
So it tried to be just a pure traditional house, it has a giant garage across the front, non-starter. So I think you have 2 choices. You either go with the traditional form, put the driveway down the side, or access it from another site some other way, and do a traditional house that looks like a regular traditional house. That's one option. You have another option, and you don't make it look like some amalgamated strange thing that happened. You make it look like an industrial vernacular. What this looks like to me is sort of the version that happened a million times on campus, where there were a bunch of houses on High Street, and they slapped a 1-story store on the front of it. And it, first of all, was unsuccessful and crap. Secondly, it was at least organic, and that happened over time because there was a change in the economy, or there was a change in the use of campus, or the amount of drunken people walking up and down the street at a certain decade that needed to get pizza, whatever it was. Nothing's changing on this street. Nothing honestly has significantly changed on this portion of the street in 50 years. We are now starting to change it. And so we got to cut from, each of these sites at least has to be whole cloth. that then creates the fabric of this corridor. And I think one of the toughest arguments that you have is that there is an industrial, a legitimate industrial vernacular on the other side of Fourth that goes right into those industrial sites that are on the end. And there's no denying that that side of Fourth was industrial historically, still remains so to a certain extent. Clark Grave Vault, Jeffrey's just recently has become a complete neighborhood on an old industrial site, all these things. And as soon as you cross Fourth, when you look at these houses that are there, they don't typically have front loaded drive that goes into the front of the building. I'm not saying there are none, but there aren't very many. And then you look around the corner where we just did this, that 4-unit infill, all the garages are in the back. All of them in the front are very traditional style. Now, they're not traditional in the fact that you would mistake that they were there for 100 years, but they have a traditional fact. This is trying to do a thing that is different, so it has to be super successful in the way it does it, and it's not there. So I think the bottom line, like the baseline, if you're going to try and create an industrial building that has a garage that faces the front, baseline is you have to look at some of these other industrial buildings that are on the other side of the street, where they really are, the new builds, they really are fully industrial profiles that then have a front garage door. I don't personally think those are the most successful ones. I would say the ones down further on Greenwood.
Do you want to have them brought up on the screen? So
Yeah, I mean, we can pop them up. So if you go all the way down, when you walk down the street, and just your gut reaction is gonna be like, yeah, those are better. They're better than what you're proposing.
So you don't mind a flat roof then? Because all the other houses.
Yeah, like 1,000 flat roofs.
I know, it's just that, we're going off.
And
Yeah.
then instead of having this wraparound porch, move the roof up to the top.
Yeah,
Or even
we
this
have
faux
totally
industrial.
improved thousands of units in the last couple of years of flat roofs. That's not even an exaggeration.
No, I know there's a ton, but it just, on that street right there, next to their houses.
But yeah, but what you're doing right now is like the worst of both worlds. So like if you walk, just take us down the street all the way, if you, let's just real quick, sorry. To wash you around on the street, but if you go all the way to the end, I mean, I think just as a quick reaction, like, and I'm just speaking for myself, but if anybody says differently, like those all look better. Boom, boom, boom. Those all look pretty good. That one, that's terrible. And then you keep going. It's like, ooh, again, another couple that look pretty good. What's in common with all those? They don't have garage doors facing the street. Okay, that's not too hard to figure out. Front porches, a scaled style that fits in the neighborhood. And if you wouldn't mind, just keep walking a bit toward Fourth. Not the other way, actually. And then we get further down, and then we get into a little patch down here. They do have garage doors facing the street. They're acceptable, but not as good, in my opinion. They're like, okay, we have them happen. I don't think they're as good as what was just down the street. And then we walk a little further, and now you get into a little bit more of, a large scale development, which has a garage door on that side in order to service this big development. So it's like that, like my tour of that street, it's like there's 3 okay and 1 terrible. And
There's
then
one more coming. You remember,
Oh, yeah, we
there's
just
a
approved that.
project we just approved,
right. You're
along that street that you just walked us down. That
That's
you
right.
can take a look at.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be, really, quite nice.
Yeah. Just wanted to.
That's a great point. Yeah, and that one's.
Where's that at?
Right here. It's, yeah. It has,
That's where I'm building. We just got done. Oh, that lot. I'm on the right of it.
yeah, and it's really, it has a unique, strong architectural style and, it kind of elevates that approach of the way the parking can.
In this part of Italian Village, we had long conversations, right? Because the whole time we've been here, these all been built
Right.
just in the past 6 years, maybe. It's okay to have a completely industrial next to a completely historic looking. They just need to do one or the other. And the reason it's okay is because that's literally what there was. You had some old houses, old wooden houses right next to the factory. And so that's okay, but trying to do both, it's just.
Yeah, and your actual lot is an example of that, because on the other end of it, the industrial building is nestled in to a street of houses. That being said, it's not both an industrial building and a traditional house. It's an industrial building, and then next door is a traditional house. So I just think you have to pick what you're going to do, and I think having a garage facing the street has to be a more successful building. Whereas I think if you pick to have the garage buried in the lot, then it's a lot, you have a much wider array of things you can choose from.
That's not,
A
yeah,
lot
that's not an
easier.
option.
So,
If we, I just don't want to have to come back another time after next month. So if you go all the way to the end, if we do one of those houses, like your favorite one on there, and copy that, does it need to be brick?
Which is your favorite?
I don't know.
Does it have doors?
I'm not saying fake.
Which one is well done?
What do you think's well done?
These industrial ones that don't have, yeah, they have a drive past them. They don't have an entrance for the garage directly on the street.
Yeah,
Those other three though.
the other three, yeah.
Fine.
That's fine. Yeah, they're like, there's the ones that we can negotiate about.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump in here and say that there are other industrial buildings, such as the Sawtooth Building behind the Tiny Village Market, that nestles in nicely with residences too, so you can look at that for inspiration. But ultimately, for me in this seat, it's also going to come down to how it feels on the street with the other, the other structures. So there are some places where industrial buildings are on zero lot line for sure, but I'm not sure that's the best situation here. And I think you're going to have to give up either a little bit of side yard or a little bit of front yard to make it work on your site. That's just my opinion. It may not be the commission's opinion.
So I want to clarify a few things. There are two framed houses on this side of Fourth. Across the alley is an industrial building. At the corner of Fourth and Greenwood on this side is also an industrial building. So as we're taking a lot of cues from two framed homes, on that side of the street, I'm just pointing that out. I also want to clarify that this proposed new construction building is not a zero lot line building. The variances that were referencing zero lot line were for the existing garage on the front of the parcel.
I see that.
So I just wanted to clarify that. So this, our proposal does have a standard 3-foot setback on the side yard.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we're not saying you have to use the vernacular of those houses.
Oh, yeah, I
We're not
understand.
telling you have to take those clues. What we're saying is that is a solid option because there are two next door and one across the street, which is very different than the other side of Greenwood, where you don't have anything across the other side of the street. It's all industrial. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. I think anybody that claims what this use is across the street is likely to remain for a long period of time is saying so at their own benefit if you're trying to make an argument. Because we see how rapidly redevelopment is occurring up and down Fifth Avenue. I have no understanding of the real estate or the circumstance with that, but I don't believe 20 years from now, no matter what the circumstance is today, that thing is going to be sitting looking like.
I completely agree, and more than likely, it's going to be a, parking structure or,
I don't know if we know that.
the back of a fairly significantly sized building.
We don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be a garage door that faces directly across from here most likely.
Right.
So with that, any other comments or thoughts?
One other just conversation piece, so there is a code violation active on the property for trees being removed without approval. And is part of the, application now for either to, approve the removal of those trees, some of them were more mature trees, some of them were, younger trees. Or conversation piece for that one as well, just part of that.
Okay, what are we supposed to do about that right now?
I know,
What is that?
yeah,
We don't have a plan, we don't know how what was taken
yeah,
down.
so that's part of it now, this came to our attention maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was miscommunication on my team's end.
Yes.
They were supposed to get all the shrubbery out, demo that, existing car barn, whatever the hell it is. But they wouldn't, those, eventually whatever we built here, I think a couple of those had to go out anyways, but, yeah, still wasn't planned on.
Yeah, if we
Take it out
get
now.
some sense from whomever,
Yes.
it should be code violation, like what scale, whatever, we just need to know something.
It is part of materials now.
Oh, it
We
is.
recommend, maybe a new COA application to be submitted with, the details of what was like a site plan.
I don't even think any big tree, I don't think any big trees were taken down. I think that's just all like,
Some
but I'm not sure. I haven't been there.
It's all right. I think some of the stumps were rather large. We've compared it with you. We've got
Okay.
with a shoe for reference. So I think some of them, but some of them were younger trees.
Yeah.
What's the standard now? It's like, you replace the same inchage that you removed? Something like that. You can go to attached trees.
I don't, that's.
But the salt.
It
is
should
whatever
be
is
That tree
something.
cut line, that you just,
Is that
over months ago, it's
Oh,
like,
is that
if you
the new
remove a
thing?
10-inch tree, you gotta replace it with 5.2s or something.
Oh, interesting. Or why not a tree that would get back to 10 inches?
Yeah.
I don't think
Well,
it's,
that takes a while.
yeah,
Okay, so
But
it's getting
it's,
up.
they're gonna have
Go back and
a, they're
repeat
gonna
that
have a forest in other words.
It's out of their business every time. All right, so with all that, what other questions do you have for us today?
I don't think I have much. Maybe just provide an opinion on the style of replacement garage door for the front building that fronts Fourth. Because we're currently, preparing to submit something for that.
Yeah, that would be. First, okay, folks, as you fresh opinion with no
Yeah,
preparation, is anybody prepared to think or say anything about this?
I love those buildings, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm partial to them.
You like that door?
Oh, the
Phil-
garage door. I like
Just
the, oh, just,
So I purchased, it was just like two pieces of like metal paneling that's hanging by one screw at the top.
Yeah, it's not.
No, that's not what that is. That's an older picture. It was actually pretty dangerous, but nonetheless, I gotta close it up somehow, and that's not gonna suffice.
Is this a hinge door? It's not, it doesn't look like it's horizontally segmented, right? So it's not an overhead.
No, it was, they have the rasher overhead, but at some point, the door itself was taken out and there's just metal, like sheathing.
Is
That
this
was,
your room?
no, that's Google Street.
so the question is if you could go back to this for now. This is just a temporary because you're just trying to block it off.
That was probably temporary too.
no, we're just asking for an opinion on the style of
The garage door we wanna put in.
what we want to put in.
So
Because
if I-
we've submitted a flush panel steel door,
Yeah, it's just good useful.
that was questionable about its appropriateness.
I think, yeah, personally, I don't, no offense, I don't think that's a great example of a garage that you want to look at, but if you.
No, this is the garage that's on their site that they are preserved, that we are very interested in that preserving.
It's
Yes.
Think about it.
Talking about.
All they're asking about is what kind of garage door should they replace it with since they don't have a function.
Oh,
And if I could speak
now I
on
get
that,
it. Thank you.
real quick, commissioners, Carrick and I had fax correspondence through email, and you were proposing the modern steel door that you're gonna be proposing for the new build as well for this spot? Carrick?
Correct.
Okay, that was proposed, we emailed back thinking possibly maybe another style of garage door, possibly from Clopay, they have some carriage house doors, maybe more appropriate.
I don't know, I'd have to honestly think about it. I mean, I think carriage house just smacks to me. It doesn't, I don't know if I'm not thinking of that right, but it doesn't sound right. I'm thinking something that is more industrial in character because it always would have been. But I don't know what that means. That being said, if it's just a modern steel door, I don't know if you're gonna leave this, who knows? If you're gonna leave this as a garage for the next however many years, or at some point you're gonna come back in and ask us to, put some sort of an access.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, it's just staying as is.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I have no plans on that right now.
I'll just throw there that I support a simple steel door, but I also support a hinge door. In other words, we've been talking about overhead doors, but
Yeah.
there might be another hinge door that's appropriate for that small. So
Which may have been, it was from way back in the day. But, yeah. I guess the answer is we don't know.
Okay.
So we'll look into it. Again, none of us had considered it. So you have a thought?
No, on the garage.
Yeah, garage door.
I think I would
Yeah, that one.
Like
It's simple,
Okay, a simple
It's
flat.
like a 5-panel flush door, right?
about this one though. that
Oh,
we're-
sure, yeah, please.
Which reminded me, if this garage were, reduced in size, I would like to see where the big trash and recycle things are gonna be stored. If, so that they're not littering the street like in the photograph that we just looked at.
That alley has those big trash bins back there on the alleyway.
The 300-gallon city.
Yeah, it's no personal storage.
Everybody's.
Which could end up in your front of your garage, so.
Those would be transitioning away.
So you might be well to think about where the smaller 90 gallon is gonna go.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just stating that that's what's there right now.
Okay, any other questions for us today?
No, okay, I think
Do
so.
you feel like you know where you're going?
I hope so.
All right.
And
Got to get this thing rolling.
so you're leaning towards more industrialized?
Yeah, we'll just do flat roof industrial building, just like the other ones like Greenwood.
So I think the examples that you saw back in the alley were fine.
Yeah.
If it starts to look like it's a face elevation, there's the proportions of those were so bad, and where the windows were, the garage, that kind of thing. So I think if you just
That's his
spend
fault.
some time with that, it makes some changes.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Do we have a motion to continue the application?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions. Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
And additionally, the applicants, due to the rescheduling, as I stated earlier, there'll be a week to make that, a week from today to be on the February, if possible, if not, deadline for.
Better get work on that.
But I'll send that email out.
Okay. And I don't think anybody else has come in, right?
No, I don't think.
All right, so it looks like we're on a conceptual application.
Okay, if we pull up another chair.
Oh, yeah, please do, please do. And this is 244 East Fourth Avenue, IB-23-01-006. And with that, we close it. Okay, if you will each raise your right hand, and we'll just kind of go down the line. Please state your name for the record.
Joel Ronsky, Gunsman Architects.
Andy Failer, Gunsman Architects.
Tyler Swartzmiller, Haas Studio.
And you all swear to tell the truth in the testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
I do.
All right, great. Staff.
Proposed work description, 2 buildings with each to have two attached dwelling units to be 35 feet in height. Units to include 3 surface lot parking spaces located to the west of property. Site improvements to include new walkways, new pavement, new landscaping, with new tree to be added to site. 2 new bike parking spaces, 5 private garage bins located within the surface parking lot area. This application includes exterior alterations to restore a historic truck gun home facing Greenwood Avenue, restorations to include new asphalt shingle roof from approved list, new half-round gutters, repair existing wood siding and install new wood siding to match where missing, new windows from the approved windows list, new entry doors following IBC guidelines, repair foundation wall as needed, and new cast-in-place concrete steps. Staff analysis, property was previously approved in October 2021 for an addition and renovation to the 4th Avenue facing property, as well as for the new construction of a new 2-car attached garage. The lot was additionally previously recommended in November 2021 to split the lot between the 2 single-family homes. Property facing North Avenue experienced fire in December of 2021 and received approval for demolition to the extenuating circumstance of the fire. The condition additionally for applicant to submit a proposal for infill within the 6 months from approval. The following is taken from the approved February 2022 Italian Village Commission meeting minutes. Typically, demolition requires documentation of the building to understand extent of damage, plans for the new construction, to understand the unusual circumstances of fire. Want to be sure the lot is not sitting empty for extended time, and noted that the approval will be conditioned on plans being submitted for building site in the next 6 months. Some commissioners noted that they would prefer to see new construction built in the same design with fire damaged historic home. Noted the demolition approval applies only to the 2-story fire damaged house. The single-story building at the rear along Greenwood Avenue is not approved as part of demolition. Staff notes staff is in support of the proposed restoration of the shotgun cottage facing Greenwood Avenue. The commissioner should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. No action is required at this time.
Okay. That's what we've got today.
So starting, I think obviously keeping the existing building on that site is, priority of ours. The one thing that we do have noted in the site plan that we do have as part of the package is just a discussion, the possibility of potentially moving that building on the site. The current location of the building limits so basically they own 1.5 of the lots, but the half lot is kind of to the side and the back there. But the existing building to be restored is in the back of the other one. So one of the points of discussion is there any possibility of, keeping, maintaining and restoring that building, but moving it within the site, which would allow for parking and possibly a redesign of how the site is configured.
So what you're saying is moving it basically, essentially one lot to the west.
Yeah, kind of diagonal. You see the dashed line there
I don't see.
on the site plan.
I don't think I'm looking at the right.
Yeah, A0.2, you can see there's the dashed line there.
Yeah.
There's actually.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, the dashed line.
Yeah,
Yep.
I see.
Yeah, so that's,
Down a little bit.
and looking at the,
There you go.
There you
the
go.
two, the 1.5 properties, that was, in looking at the different building and layouts and getting potential parking or maybe garages below off of Greenwood there. That existing building is in a tricky spot. So that was just one question, but then our current design shows it, keeping it in its original spot.
Oh,
This is.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So it states.
Yeah, so actually, if you go up a few slides, sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. So the small building, this is the small building that's in the
It'd be
back.
helpful if you'd be at the screen.
Yeah, you can jump up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that building is at the back of the lot. And was survived by the fire. So the house that burned down was here, and that building remains at the back of the lot.
Can you show us on the site plan too?
Yeah.
Okay, where was it and where do you want it to be?
So this is that small building still existing on the side. The building, the house that burnt down was on front of that lot. The owner also owns this adjacent lot. The house had 1.5 parcels. So our current design and everything we show in this package is keeping it in that spot. But we know that you've had a density of 1.5 lots. It is higher on ones like this, but it's because they have the parking off of the alley. Underneath the enclosed part of the building footprint.
Right.
Which with this building in that location doesn't allow for this on the site with that back alley.
So you.
Similar to some of those other ones that were mentioned in the previous case. Down the alley is.
The dash line is where it is now.
Now, this is
That's where it is.
currently.
Dash line is where you want it to go, the first.
Yeah, that's just a discussion. One, if it were to move there, that would allow, potentially maybe a garage and
So
larger building.
the issue with moving it there is that you're then gonna, like, the whole reason we saved this building is because it's a classic shotgun found in the neighborhood. And if we hide it between a parking garage and another house, why did we save this building?
Sure.
So I would not be in favor. The whole point was to keep that look of that shotgun building off that street.
Yeah, I gotta think about this for a second. Other thoughts?
Well, I guess I would ask the question of what its use would be in that configuration in its present location. and what its use might be in the future. Because it's a small footprint, so I'm just kind of curious what it'd be used for.
Currently, it's just a, yeah, they at one point it was a small house. There's a chimney in the middle.
Yep.
I think at one point you can see in some of the photos, there was a kind of a lean-to shed roof structure on the back that is no longer there.
So presently, it's been being proposed as a residential print as opposed to.
Yeah, and we have-
or something.
Correct, and we have that in the design package, just a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, small.
But I'm curious about the parking. I don't know how many cars are required for that much square footage.
I'm not sure.
Square.
Right now it's 5 units, so two buildings with 2 units each. And then this one, so it's technically 5 units for this lot. So so part of it would be a variance for 1 less parking.
Because it's at least, do you know what it's?
I cannot recall that for buildings.
Okay.
I think it's one per unit.
One per unit.
So we would definitely be pursuing a variance for 1 less parking.
To my eye, there's a kind of significant order to the way it's been drawn here today that it follows this sort of concept of shotgun, sort of site, so it's like a scaled kind of concept. So I'd have to see a compelling reason why we should, especially if we'd have to move it, why it should go to the new other location. It seems to be in good order here, and it would be a lot easier to restore in locations.
Yeah, and like I said, being a conceptual review, that was at least something I wanted to discuss.
Good question.
But maybe the design, keeping it in the location.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could show it to us in other variations and then it's just impossible to say without understanding the trade-offs. My initial understanding was I was thinking you're just gonna move it one to the side to sort of preserve, as Shannon was saying, that feel and then somehow change your building program to extend those back. The one thing I will say is I find the way you're approaching the parking, I don't know, odd's not the right word. It doesn't feel.
It's challenging.
Yeah,
I
and
think
here's the thing, I understand there's a market for parking spots. As a commission, we're not advocates for more parking spots. So to take that basically full development lot and fill it edge to edge with paving, that doesn't sound very appealing to me. Like for me, that's not doing anything. I'd much rather have it be another building and then people figure out where to park. Now, I get it, that from a market perspective, that may not be what the desire of the property owner wants to do because they want to be able to sell spots with their lot. But if we could somehow put those in a different location, vary those somehow internal to the lot in a way that's access through a drive, that'd be a lot more effective.
With that being said, maintaining this and these 2, if there was a structure here. Maybe that one could potentially have parking, 2 parking.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I think you have to be creative, but, just like a quick look at it, do those 2 buildings that you're constructing, do they have to be attached to each other? Is that part of your fundamental concept? Can you pull those apart, put one back on green lawn, either in that empty lot or switch this building with it in some way, have an access drive that kind of pools your parking somewhere in the center? I don't know. I mean, that's like, I'm just brainstorming through looking at it. It just feels like you might have enough width to accommodate a driveway internal to the site, which is basically the struggle we were just having on the previous application.
Yes, and I think in the previous, before the house burned down, there was a proposal that was approved and expired for a garage in the middle
Right.
of the parcel.
Yeah, this had shared, the original design of this site had shared parking in between 2. Yeah. Like the homes were where the car, it was a home, they were patty corners with each other.
The existing home was down here.
Yeah.
This remaining parking here.
And then a home there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's some version that you can do with that, whether or not it moves that building. I guess for me, it's like, I'm okay with moving the building if it gives us some kind of benefit. We say, here's the reason we need to move it, because now we can relocate this parking. So, we've got a more internalized site, we've got a more successful streetscape. Yeah, sure, I'm up for moving it. Kind of tuck it in the middle of the site, maybe, but you'd really have to have a compelling reason to modify the way that frontage worked. And I don't think having like a big garage door over there is the compelling reason. That's gonna make us want to.
Sure.
So I guess that's the best answer I can give. Ben, what are you thinking?
Wait, first of all, I just wanted to say that the architecture is quite nice and compelling as expect from you. But I do have to say, is there on-street parking in this area?
There's, yeah, across from Bud's Dairy, there's on
Pay
street.
that if they-
Yeah.
Okay. So I just, we all at one point were moving towards multimodal forms of transportation. It just never happened. People are still driving, and that's the one thing that I think I worry about with this. I mean, there are things that it wasn't so tight, if the lot coverage wasn't as great as it is. Some of those things, I don't even know, you last car, but you do back up all out onto the.
Yeah, and we looked at multiple scenarios with it there, like angled parking and different, but this was the most cars that would fit in that configuration. It's not ideal, but.
And we don't want a parking lot. I think the idea is if we move the structure, that could allow us then to actually have internal garages, so these cars wouldn't be outside.
Yeah, sure.
And that's, yeah.
Show us that.
Okay.
Yeah, because, and I just think, everybody wants to push the amount of square footage to the absolute limit, and sometimes you just have to give up a little bit to be able to make things happen.
Yeah.
I would also, if you could, and I don't know how this would help in any way, but if somehow trying to keep little building, just moving it over, not over and back.
Yeah.
If we could keep it facing the frontage to keep the character of the neighborhood.
Sure.
Like, it's not that I'm opposed to moving it. I am fully opposed to moving it into the middle of the site where no one can see.
Yeah. I mean, from a construction point, we have to pick this up and move it anyhow because the foundation's gone. There's nothing left to it. So I have to pick it up and move it no matter what I do and then put it on.
Small enough issue, you could just get.
Like, pretty much, if we all get together, we all get there right now and move it. I think people would be happy because, but it needs moved anyhow to be put a new foundation under it.
That being said, one of the things I would find appealing, and this is not at all required. I think if, say it was in a vacuum and this house had remained, I could see a scenario where someone would have split this lot and put a large addition on the back of this little, because we've seen it happen throughout the village. I think it'd be cool if there was sort of a site constraint with the other buildings you put on here where someone couldn't expand that house and actually have, it's just like we hardly have any freestanding small units anymore, which used to be kind of prevalent. We used to have probably, I don't know, 15 or
It's like one
So-
on seconds.
Yeah.
Would you be okay if we move this to the front of Fourth? Like, what if this becomes the
Yeah.
front of
That's
the
what I
house?
mean,
And then
yeah.
we could build a structure in the back.
Yeah, that would be okay
Okay.
too. Yeah, I think that's what Shannon's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I would love to see that.
So where
Just did.
where the
with
house,
Summit, where you did that addition in the back of it.
Yeah.
The shotgun that we fought for.
And what I'm saying is, I guess now it's turning into the opposite thing, is this is turning into a house with a big addition. But I'd say also it'd be cool if it was like a standalone thing.
Yeah.
Just always remain small while you build two new.
Build around, yeah, keep the original structure.
and that would open, the parking.
The parking lot off the back. And, yeah,
Or what I was thinking, I don't know, I understood you, Shannon, is saying that moving it just over, and then you could go back to possibly then you could take the building number 2,
Yeah.
shift it to the back, then go to the parking in the middle and still create the drive between.
Yeah, it can
So
be
it sounds
moved
like-
basically anywhere. just
Anywhere.
Not the middle of the city.
no, yes, no,
To maintain the exposure.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I will say from an office standpoint, we'll want to probably keep the context of the shotgun facing Greenwood Avenue.
Yeah.
It was originally
Yeah.
constructed historically, just because of the nature of the building and the history of the building, that's where those properties would have been constructed along
Yes.
those alleyways.
That's right.
So just from an office standpoint, we'll.
Okay.
Well, I think the other thing is, Fourth, I mean, one of the great things about Fourth right there is that you do have sort of a long string of houses without, I believe, any kind of curb cuts or breaks.
There's none.
The entire
There's
curb
not
cut.
one.
I mean, that'd be a rough transition for me to say that was okay.
that's true.
Yeah,
I think the access has to come off.
Yeah.
So with that being said, getting into the, if you go ahead a few pages, you can see, Ben, in your response to what the function of that small house was, we do have a plan showing what that.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's what that would be.
Brooke, did you have some thoughts?
Well, I think that I'm glad that Morgan talked about keeping the orientation of the existing structure as it is on the site plan. That just the stepping on each of these streets of these existing houses, I think is really important. And the way you have it oriented now just kind of reinforces that whole shotgun.
Having
thing.
all the buildings
Yeah,
aligned.
line up.
Right, right. But I'm not opposed to moving it if it were to move to Fourth Street or,
On the back of the,
right. But I think that's really important. I don't think that I'm really crazy about the shared exterior stair. But I think maybe with a little more development, I could be swayed. It just feels, it reminds me of an apartment building that I lived in when I went to Ohio State. It was really scuzzy.
It's kind of like that also, you know, you
Yeah.
have like the big retention pond behind the apartment buildings. that
Right.
I get
Yeah,
it.
there are other, switch back to version.
And I think a lot of that was just with the, square footage we were trying to
Right.
get and
Right.
keeping the building where it was and the space constraints where I think if we did shift the building over, that would allow a little bit of wiggle room to potentially eliminate the shared stair.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, like, I take some serious convincing to move that small building to the Fourth, because I was not understanding it started becoming part of the discussion until staff cited that. I mean, I think it needs to still be agreed. I think that's just me. Ben, what do you think?
Well, I think in terms of the small building, anything is maybe possible, but I think we need to see some massing models to understand that first, or at least I feel comfortable with that. To
Yeah,
actually see them executed so that we can have the conversation without doing a lot of arm waving.
sure.
I think there's a compelling reason why it should stay where it is. I mean, just the fact that it is there is the main thing. And I've already expressed the alignment, appeal of these words and other reasons that are a little more esoteric. But the last thing I'll say about the small building is just that let's not have four windows. I know that we're way down the line for that kind of stuff, but that's really complicated for that. Moving on to the other two structures, I'm going to say that I feel that this proposal is inappropriately massive. It's too large for the site and context. And but the good news is that I feel that that some of this can be resolved by committing to lowering the building in the ground. And we've seen this in other developments anyway, where there's this temptation to really lift these things out of the ground. And I can't emphasize more how much we, and at least I, will be looking for making sure this thing settles into the ground like a lot of these small homes, especially in this area, do. This will impact the sort of height of the porch, and potentially the sense of its overall height and on the streetscape. As far as the pairing of the two buildings, and I'm not convinced that 4-unit is what we need here, but I can get behind two structures. But I'm going to be a little skeptical about that. I mean, to me, the 4-unit is creating all these problems, including the parking. And if it could be fewer units, a different kind of configuration altogether, different parties that allow a little sort of snugger relationship to the streetscape and the overall height, I think that would be a good thing from my seat.
So the density.
Density is a problem, or just, the scale is a problem. I'm not saying that, the density is necessarily a problem. I think that density is probably the problem, but that I think it can be resolved in other ways by having, the less liberal amounts of square footage perhaps or something. But in terms of architecture, I think that there are some good things about the punches on the east elevation. I think that the randomness and the various scales, which is something that I think is something we should seek more of, and it's a good thing. The punches on the other elevations, like on the west, start seeing a little, I don't know, it's too regular. The punches on, and I will say that it's important to my eye that if we go to the elevation on the west, that you have it right. This relationship is not good. The height of the parapet, height of that needs. And in general, just the way this elevation is, first you see this elevation as being a simple sort of response to a simple roof line, but when it expands over to capture this flat roof and the parapet, it's a chunk, and we don't understand why this attraction is there. So either the roof needs to respond to that in some way, or this material needs to change. So there's a materiality thing that needs to happen, if maybe even a setback thing needs to happen with respect to that. I don't know what kind of windows you're proposing. I'm fairly open with this kind of more modernist approach. And, the single slope roof, I think I can get behind, despite it being a gable on site and gable context, but just keep in mind that what I think is appropriate is to sprinkle in some little clever touches of historic references in the way you're approaching things. So, that whether it's this material change and that looks like an addition to the other building, or the roof line, or the material of the roof itself, picks up on something that's kind of more historically appropriate. But I'll just wrap up in saying that scale is an issue, porch height is an issue, water table line is an issue for my seat. I also want to sort of respond to something that your students talked about, and the idea of pulling apart buildings, I think is interesting. It's not necessarily a direction right now. It helps solve things. I could be on board, something like that. That's all I got.
So I wanted to just say, along those same lines, you were talking about putting the building down into the ground, but if you look at the floor plans, they say basement. And also, we don't have any sections for this, so that would be really helpful to try to understand if you're really saying this is already suppressed into the ground somewhat, because the elevation does show half windows at the bottom, but yet we see first floor grade in the elevations. But there's not a dashed line indicating anything's below. So I don't know if that's a dumb question that I'm asking, why these are called basement plans, but.
So, yeah, it's partially below grade, but we can call that out further in
Yeah.
sections with the grade.
Because I don't know, Ben, then if you notice that, and if you're saying that you think they should suppress this even more into the ground than they are, but that's something that we'd like to see.
Sure, we can add sections.
The water table might just need to be lower.
So the basement plan, what we're seeing, I didn't actually catch this until, Commissioner Trot pointed everything out. But there are no windows, right, except for the egress window
There is an egress.
Yeah, there's some.
in the bedroom, or it would have to be. It's the electrical side.
On the elevation, let's see.
I mean, I see it.
But I mean, typically an elevation would have a dash showing what was below, what's suppressed into the ground.
And then the ground floor, ground level is this.
Yeah, on the east and west elevations, there are half low windows that are that do show up on the elevation. And I assume that's per where our cut plane is, but they're not showing up for the basement. But you can see on the
It's
east,
like, assuming this, the only door that we see is
Oh,
the
I see
egress
what you're
door.
saying.
So
from the
that-
basement, correct.
Other thoughts from the commission? Questions from the applicant?
I guess the only thing I have is on a lot that was approved that Roby built on the 235 East was also a multifamily duplex or I think 3-unit and the scale of that. And I want to understand when we're talking scale and proportion wise. You probably had to pull up on Google Maps, this because this was just recently constructed and the scale and density of what that was. It's
Right there.
just in construction. You see it, it's literally right next to our lots.
And that's the one I mentioned that has the garages from the alley.
Right, it's where
Right
that
there,
building
that-
is constructed, you see the plywood, you can't see it in this view, it's only, currently, it's only in the top view, but this is finished construction now. So you can see the density of how much that takes up, and then there are, I think, 3 or 4 garage doors that face that alley. That then it's I think it's a 3-unit
I think it might be a duplex.
or duplex.
So if you look at the building next to it, it's much larger. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
That-
huge,
that's
yeah,
what-
it's full, yeah, it's a huge
right, so
building,
like,
yes.
it's not overtaking.
Okay,
Now,
Context.
that is to say, not all commit, when
Yeah.
we say density, like, you can fit 7 homes
Yeah,
on the
sure.
lot. I would
Yes.
like you to. We have a housing shortage.
Yeah.
It's more about massing in comparison to what's around it.
Okay.
than-
The context.
Yes.
The adjacent
Okay.
context.
Yeah, we invite a street elevation. You can make that argument, street elevation.
Yeah.
I do think there's contextual matter that you are against homes, whereas that other development was not, so they benefited from the space and the way we sense that space and its adjacency to the other building to the west and so forth. So everything, the reason we're here is that it's contextual.
yeah, okay.
One last question I do have. It sounds like as we look at the site and potentially keeping the existing building where it is, but potentially look at a study of just shifting it over, keeping the exposure. It sounds like the commission would be in favor of parking variance in parking to accommodate these things that
Willing.
Yeah.
trying to cram in.
Yeah, okay.
Would like you to have no parking.
I don't.
Yeah.
And Shannon hit it on the nail on the head. I mean, these are liberal resident or living spaces. So, smaller spaces, if they help to afford you to lower roof line or better massing, you can't agree more with it.
Yeah, I mean, the parking thing, if you're not being held to being multifamily in this development, and have to pay a fee for reduced parking. Whatever you feel is commercially comfortable for you.
Okay. But Dare takes all that parking all the time, so it's really hard on the street. It's really hard.
Yeah, and one of the issues is, you can always ask the city for modifications of the way that they administer their policies too. So they have a much more sophisticated parking permit and time structure than they did before. So it's all, there's a lot of things that can be done, which were not possible just a few years ago. Okay, so with that, there's no action that needs to be taken because it's a conceptual application. Anything else you need on us on that, staff?
No, just the discussion.
All right, great. Well, thanks. Thanks for coming in and good luck. We'll look forward to seeing you back here. in
Thank
the
you
near
for all the
future.
feedback.
And then we do have one cleanup to do on the regular agenda since the applicant is not here. That is the solar panels, which was, I don't know, what was that one? Number 4. Oh, 4, okay. Sounds good. So IV-23-12-008, 51 East Fourth Avenue. Do I hear a motion to continue to the next regular meeting?
So
And second, all right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, let's continue. Hey, well, hopefully they'll come in now.
see how they were able to make that.
I know everybody's, I'm sure, eager to get out of here. The tree survey's been on there for a long time. I just didn't reread it during that, the end of that discussion.
How did you do it?
I will say, just very quickly, if anybody has a chance to link into that, I do think that it's mostly just reinforcing a lot of what we've already been doing, which is indicating there are very few large tree sites. What the city forester would consider an adequate large tree site in the tree line, because it has to be 7 feet wide or more, and what is like 40 feet from another tree or something.
70,
That's what this document's advocating, a minimum of 7 feet wide.
large portion.
Of what's that?
What is it?
The tree lawn.
Okay.
The tree lawn is for them to have.
What's our Brad Woods?
Yeah, for this for an advocate, for this to advocate it being a large tree site for a street tree. And again, I'm just talking from this document. They said that that's 7 feet or more, and I think it's 40 feet from another tree. Yeah, here it is. So that's what they would say is an ideal site to plant a large tree, and that's one of the issues. We have 0 identified in the entire town village. So one of their recommendations is a thing that we've been trying to do, which is exploring planting beyond the right of way. So I think it's even more important that we encourage.
Say out of the right way?
Yeah, so you know how we've done.
So, you know,
On
basically
property.
on property.
Yeah, so I think it's even more important that we encourage, especially in large scale developments on wherever they are, major thoroughfares or other, that, and I think we can look to this map to see where we're short, but just in general, I mean, just when we look at the application, we can see if there's a shortage of trees there. I think it's even more incumbent upon us to try to get those large scale trees.
I couldn't agree more, and just wonder how we take action to either have an advocate on the commission that always watches out for that, or that we write a draft that is for a future guideline, or that it's some sort of compromise situation, that we would allow such and such if they do full-size tree and they're, and, you know, set back the foundation to allow for a tree, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. And I think then there's others that are frustrations, like, you know, the one I always go back to is that one right at the old Cracker Paint site, where we actually got to put a lot of plane in, but they didn't do anything to improve or amend the soils, and it died after, you know, 7 to 10 years. It was just starting to get some mass to it. And by now, if that thing had lived, it would be a big tree. But they also did not do anything. So now it's just, you know, ground cover. It's like, whatever, you know, low IP or something. And that's, who cares, you know? I mean, we have plenty of planting beds. We need mass, especially on the big sites. So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if is there any benefit in just getting something written down?
I think so. I think so.
And does Ms. Trot, you want to write that down? I mean, those kind of 3 points.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a fourth. I just want to make sure it's not falling off our radar, and that is that kind of the reason I wanted to get together as a offline or during the business meeting, is so that we could identify and preserve certain corridors.
Yeah.
To not get power lines that are going to, that are redundant to the other side of the street, that are going to interfere with this objective we have.
Yeah. I agree.
And I feel like it would be good to just diagram a couple of, you know, we'll say 10 or 20 blocks, or a particular corridor that we would feel that is salvageable.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And that we could rely on, and this would actually be a document, a draft that we could even not only enter in the record, but is that we can take into front of city council and things like that, or at least have somebody present, understand this, and maybe even part of the zoning, you know, I don't know, because this whole zoning thing's roaring down on us as well.
Yeah.
Where are they on the zoning? Can we still have things?
Well, let's put time out on that.
Yeah, that's still a big discussion.
That, in any case, that we get these 4 points.
Yeah, I think there's maybe some more nuance in there. Like, for instance, is there a process where we could have, you know, where the HPO staff could consult with another staff group to say, okay, we only have on these blocks in this document, small tree or medium tree sites. what would it take in order for that to be a jump up in the tree site for that recommendation on the street tree without being able to necessarily change the infrastructure? And so, again, I'm not an expert on this. I just, stand around landscape architects when they talk about this stuff. But whatever that function is, that amending that soil in a certain way or changing the function of that tree lawn, which we could potentially do in conjunction with the new development. There's still some sites on Fourth, for instance, where we could still say, hey, I know you're not gonna change the curb line, you're gonna have a sidewalk, but what can we do in order for you to create something that actually would make us be able to get a large or medium-sized tree instead of all these dumb little ornamental trees that they end up banging out? Because that's just it's a benefit, but it's not much of a benefit.
And from past application, there has been a discussion, at least, from a commission standpoint for, Jeffrey Park and even, the one on Greenwood.
Yeah. Anyway, I think there's some elements there.
Yes, I mean, just to help, Commissioner Trot, maybe you could just share this recording of
Yeah, I see.
what went.
Yeah, no, this
just happened.
conversation, yeah, I've been writing down.
Are you trying to write this down?
Points to it, just that we need
Right.
a series of bullet points.
Yeah,
that
you're on the right,
are
it's
captured.
just getting a draft together, that way we can start adding to it or nuancing it, but the other thing, I have a fifth thing now that I just realized is maybe we just need to be thinking about awards or some way of acknowledging, extraordinary effort to do
It's
something.
your pre-COVID idea. We talked about this before.
Well, I think, I thought you were gonna say when you got to awards, I think that there should be also a way that we can think about advocating for awarding money to plant trees on private property, whether that be through the society or something else, like. Yeah.
So, you mean give people money and then they go buy their tree? Because in
Or, yeah, whatever it is, however the process.
Line them up with
Arlington, they said, here's all the, I don't even know if you got to pick your tree, but you just said, do you want a tree? And you could say, sure. You could plant a couple trees in front of my house and they came out and did it.
Yeah, you said that the money is.
They're a lot greater to get back.
Yeah.
Well.
Flexibility.
But I like
School
it.
system.
I think that the city has been more open
Yeah.
to, or trying to be a little more tree forward, but I think that it's gonna take us and other kinds of commission partners to help facilitate it.
And part of that is, I don't think we've gone back and looked at the village in a long time to see what is now kind of set and what is still under redevelopment potential. And the places that are already like, they're kind of set for the next decade or 2 decades, that's where we can find spots to put in trees, which we did when they did the gate, for instance, remember the fire access behind the original Jeffrey Mining building? And in that tree lawn, we had put 4 or 5 trees. Now we're starting to get a little maturity. And that'll be hugely additive 20 years from now, when you've actually got a row of 5 trees on Fourth that will be big enough to create some kind of actual canopy. If we could find, say, 6, 7 more of those spots, and then help connect that to money, that'd be a good thing.
Because I live so close to 2 other sites, further down Summit, South First Avenue, there's the old Pentecostal church.
Oh, yeah.
Has great opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
And the immense tree on the opposite side of the street where there's a setback home is, that tree is probably not long for this earth.
Yeah.
It's
right.
so huge.
Yeah.
It would be good perhaps to advocate for something that be planted in advance of its
This is the one that
demise.
goes all the way to the other side of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Because it's gonna be a big loss.
It will.
I think, so, but we can make an audit part of our
Yeah.
study.
And I think that the society would be eager to help with that too.
So it'd be good.
Been trying to go to their meetings, they just always seem to have conflict. Yeah, we're gonna try and go next month. Try to build a society. Do the 4th Tuesday.
At least they're at a 5 mile and not.
They are tomorrow, 4th Tuesday. So if anybody's interested, that's where they are, 7th Sun.
Or Tuesday?
4th Tuesday, but I always seem to have conflict. I try to go in March.
This is the kind of thing, it's perfectly fine for us to talk about
Maybe
inside of the meetings, right?
Yes.
It doesn't relate to anyone.
New business?
No, it's new business, to talk about the tree survey that came out. It's, fine. Implementing some things might be, future discussion.
I'm going to have to. I'm a new mother. Did you know that? Did you notice
Yes,
that?
you
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Before we end the meeting though, real quick, I know Commissioner Studi will not be here for the February hearing. Oh. I will be here. Commissioner Ferguson.
Well, I hope Pages can get sworn in.
Yes, so you will not be alone, Commissioner Crud. I do apologize about that.
Oh, apologize about.
Oh, that we had to start.
Oh,
Right
no.
here.
Yeah, I would have installed if I would have known there was like something I was actually gonna be.
It's okay.
Commissioner Michael Smith, will you be able to be available for the February hearing?
Yes, as far as I know. What's the date?
It's the 13th.
I have it on my calendar.
So we don't have Valentine's like last year, the day before, but
If it were Valentine's, I would
yeah.
say.
Yeah, last year we had it on Valentine's Day, but, Commissioner Trot, do you know if we'll be?
February should be fine.
I'll reach back out again. but-
Okay, March, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Stan Commissioner, good. Okay. Thank you. I'll send an email out, but Commissioner City will be.
Correct.
Okay. Just to hopefully have quorum and not have a similar situation, so appreciate it.
Okay, move to adjourn.
So.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.